Thank you all for your patience. Our next candidate in this evening's Stanley Cup final round robin is candidate Pete Boland. Mr. Boland, thanks very much for joining us this evening. We're going to jump right into the questions. We have a number of them, and they're divided in, like Gaul, into three parts. The first being biographical, the second tactical, and what you would do as our mayor specifically with directed strategies in office, and the third being your philosophy of leadership as the mayor of our community. So starting off, so everyone can get to know you a little bit better, if in 90 seconds you could give us your elevator pitch on who you are, your background and qualifications, and why you were the most qualified candidate to serve as the next mayor of the city of St. Petersburg.
Thank you, everybody, for having me here. It's a true pleasure to be here. It's a true pleasure to have this honor and privilege to attempt to serve St. Pete. This is my forever home. I'm a native of St. Petersburg, graduate of St. Pete High, and I am an entrepreneur. I'm a self-made entrepreneur. I own 2 restaurants in downtown St. Pete. We took over some blighted corners in downtown and really wanted to change and make something that was going to last forever. In my business, we pursue perfection so that we can attain excellence. And as a business owner and a leader, I've been an outspoken leader for my hospitality industry through all sorts of crises, going back to Hurricane Irma, through COVID-19, through the noise ordinance discussions and everything else we've been facing in our city. Seems to be the restaurants and our nightlife scene have been very much at the forefront. I think a lot of the issues of our city are very much the same. I come from a family of community background. My father was a Knight of Columbus. He was also a president of Northeast Little League. I grew up with this civic pride, and I just truly love St. Pete. This is my forever home. I don't ever want to be anywhere else. I'm not looking to be a career politician. I have a nice career in the private sector. I just love this place and want to move us forward and put partisan politics and career ambitions behind us so that we can actually solve true problems going forward for our city with permanent common sense solutions.
Thanks very much. Connecting that personal story that you have with the Burg, can you give us your vision for St. Petersburg's relationship to the Tampa Bay region and the rest of the country, and how you would position this city to be a community of consequence throughout the United States? 60 seconds.
So for me, my slogan and my mantra is going to be St. Pete first. So what I mean by St. Pete first is a double entendre. What I want is a city government and a local government that puts the citizens in the interest of business and private ownership and workers and regular people above partisan politics and political ambitions. And also it means putting St. Pete first. I think St. Pete should lead the region. I think we have the civic pride. We have natural resources that are unique to us. I think we have such a special place, and we need to harness this energy and continue to lead. I think we should lead when it comes to the stadium solution. I think we should have the best police force in the United States. I think we should put St. Pete first and try to be first to lead the region.
Super, thank you. On to the tactical. The city currently has an economic development strategy targeting 5 key sectors. Do you think that's still relevant in a post-COVID world? And if not, how does the region approach economic development moving forward in partnership with educational institutions to create a pipeline of readiness for the economic opportunities to come in the early 21st century? 60 seconds.
So I think in the post-pandemic world, I'm glad that we're all in the post-pandemic phase. I think that's an important mindset to have. We learned a lot, though, through COVID. We know that Zoom is kind of the way of the now. It's not the way of the future. We need to prepare ourselves for the future. I'd like to really just have a futuristic mindset for what we're trying to do and have these permanent solutions, move towards greater efficiency and a government that really, really tries to reach out to the community to serve those needs and have permanent solutions for what we're trying to do. Not just putting Band-Aids on it, not giving lip service to it, but really do things that are passionate with an eye to the future. When we talk about things like the ballpark that I'm sure we're going to talk about tonight, we want to be the first of the next generation of ballparks. We don't want to do things the way somebody else did before. We want to be the first and push St. Pete forward.
Thank you. Do you believe climate change poses a specific threat to the city? And related, there's been a lot of debate about the city's coastal high hazard area. Can you speak to your thoughts on how we responsibly develop and redevelop such a large percentage of the city's land located in this zone? And what role does the next mayor have to lead that conversation?
As someone who grew up in Shore Acres, who had their home flooded twice when I was a child, we had to flee from Hurricane Elena in 1985. and then we flooded in Tropical Storm Josephine in 1996, and then as a resident of Shore Acres again, who had their home flooded in November of this past year, I definitely understand the hazards of climate change that they push forward to. So I think the only thing that's going to slow down the momentum of St. Pete is global sea level rise. I think that's the only thing that's going to stop us. So I think we need to take a lot of things into consideration. We need to plant more trees. I think that needs to be part of it. Having more mangroves, they're going to help with some of the rising tides of floodwaters that are going to be threatening us going forward. Also, I think we need to recruit fantastic grant writers to help neighborhoods like my neighborhood in Shore Acres literally elevate when we redevelop, having higher standards, literally higher standards up off the ground so that we can prepare for those floodwaters. Driving down here tonight, leaving my neighborhood, we had floodwater in the streets. That's why I had to get a big old truck to drive through Shore Acres. So that's an important thing to me. It's something that definitely needs to be addressed, not just in my neighborhood, but all over our city.
Thank you. Near and not so dear to the hearts of the Alliance for Bayway Communities were the sewage overflows of 2015 and 16 that resulted in a consent order from the state of Florida put upon the city of St. Petersburg. The investments required to upgrade our wastewater treatment system throughout the city are hundreds of millions of dollars. What is your position on the need for future funding and where that funding will come from? 60 seconds.
I think we're probably going about it the right way currently by putting on the water sewer trash bill that we have. We've all seen those increases on our water sewer trash bills. Lord knows I'm paying them too. But we neglected this stuff for such a long time because the politicians didn't get a great photo op standing in front of a sewer or a manhole. We've got a lot of hard work to do. And nobody wanted to go to a ribbon cutting of a sewer plant. So I think we need to take a look at something like the Albert Whitted plant. I think that's something that really we need to address. That was something that if I talked to my friends that work in the water department, they said, we shouldn't have done that, Pete. That was a bad idea. We all knew it was a bad idea. And we're right here by Eckerd College. That's where all that stuff's getting diverted to. I think we need to continue to address this. We need to have a 21st century strategy for this stuff. And having tired old ideas are just not working. I think it's important to note that we are doing good work in our city. When I talk to my friends who work in the water department, they are tirelessly working. They're in overtime, doing this stuff every day. They're running 4-man crews and every manhole in the city trying to address this. We need to continue some of that good work.
Thank you. 2017, you mentioned Hurricane Irma saw over 6 million people flee Florida. Since then, the state and Pinellas County and the city have only continued to grow. What are your plans to improve shelter-in-place options here in the city?
So this is another thing that a really good friend of mine who's the leader of Ocean Aid 360, who also does the Ghost Trap Rodeo, my friend Neil Holland, he's actually a grant writer. He works for the United Nations now, which is kind of a crazy thing. We played Little League together. This guy's working for the United Nations. I'm running for mayor. But one of the things that he talks about is our lack of disaster preparedness in our city. And I didn't really feel like we got a whole lot out of Hurricane Irma. We were very lucky. We've been lucky for 100 years straight here in St. Pete. I don't think we're going to continue to get lucky. We have to have an aggressive, comprehensive disaster preparedness plan. It's a little above my pay grade what all that means, but I want to put people together. In my business, we always try to put together the right people for correct solutions. One of the strengths of my leadership will be I know what I don't know, and I'm going to bring in people that do know what they do know so that we can have the proper solutions, permanent solutions.
Thank you. How will your administration assure residents that current development, including particularly high-rise development, can be adequately handled by our public infrastructure? 30-second answer, please.
I think one of the big things is impact fees. We need to have impact fees that make sense, that fuel infrastructure. That's what they're supposed to be designed for. That's what they're there for. And we also need to pay attention and be mindful of some of the things we've got going on as far as what these buildings look like and having the right density in the right places. But impact fees are supposed to be a big part of that. And we need to have the CBA, those community benefits agreements, so that we know that the infrastructure is not getting disrupted massively when we have these new developments.
Thank you. Sticking with redevelopment in downtown with our zoning, generally allowing for large-scale development as an independent business owner in our downtown as well, how do you propose to keep the Main Street feel of Central Avenue and the historic charm of the entire city that makes St. Pete so special? 60-second answer.
So as kind of a limited government guy, I definitely want to protect property rights. I think property rights are important, but also the integrity of our city is important. We need to have some real standards of architectural design. I don't want to get too carried away on historic preservation because I think that has a lot of consequences that we're uncomfortable with. But we need to continue to grow. If we're going to grow, we have to grow up, and we need to covet and prepare our community and our entrepreneurs and grow and incubate new entrepreneurs so they can be the next independent entrepreneurs that open up their own restaurants, their own businesses. I want more Pete Bolins out there open up their own independent business. And I think that if we are able to put the right resources together in our schools and all throughout our communities, connect in our neighborhood associations so that all these programs that are already available to us and really educating people, I think we can have this continued fantastic entrepreneurial spirit. That's one of the things that's unique about St. Pete is to keep that vibe of the independent business owner.
Thank you. A question from an Eckerd College recent graduate. How do you plan to control the rising cost of living in St. Pete? Locals are being priced out of the market due to rapidly increasing rents, skyrocketing real estate prices, and stagnating salaries. A 60-second answer, please.
Well, this is a problem that's happening in cities all over these United States, but for us, we're unique that we're the peninsula on the peninsula. We're one of the great places to live in North America. There's no place else I'd rather live. And I understand why everybody wants to come here. That's driving the price up. A lot of people want to retire to St. Pete. So we need to do the best we can, though, to build more houses in a market that's 99% built out. Pinellas County is 99% built out. We didn't have a YIMBY strategy. Yes, in my backyard. We need to be smart and shrewd about future development. We need to upzone. There's a lot of programs out there that help people get more accessory dwelling units, things like garage apartments and in-law suites. My grandmother in my childhood home lived in the in-law suite. She helped raise our family. My parents actually bought that home from my grandmother. She moved down to downstairs. That's what made it affordable, though. But we gotta have kind of a community strategy for it. We need to understand that there needs to be a home for every worker, for every restaurant, every independent business, every local shop and boutique. We need to do the best we can, and we need to build a lot more houses, and we need to get government out of the way and improve the building department. That's one place we can do that.
Thank you. So sticking on this theme of affordable housing, the numbers currently are staggering that 37% or 40,000 burdened households in St. Pete are paying more than 30% of their monthly income for housing. What is your position and ideas on affordable housing for both the renter-buyer and the builder-developer to address this issue, particularly for those families earning less than 80% of area median income? A 60-second answer, please.
Well, I think we don't need a whole lot of new ideas out there. There's a lot of good ideas that are already out there. There's the City Land Trust. There's a lot of affordable housing options that are in the works. We talk about every new development has affordable housing as part of it, but density is going to be a big part of that solution. I think I touched on it a little bit in that last question of, having those things like upzoning and getting those proper corridors in place with that, but also respecting property rights. If people want to have these mixed-use developments, that needs to be, the government needs to get out of the way. Also, with the future, with 21st century transit options being, it's going to be autonomous cars, people. We're going to have robot cars on the road. It's already in Pittsburgh. It's already in Phoenix. So we need to relax some of the parking restrictions too. Every new development doesn't need a zillion parking spaces. Those things are going to be a thing of the past as we go down the road too.
Thank you. You've said that the decision on how to move forward with the redevelopment of Tropicana Field site should be left to the next mayor. Assuming that's you, what details can you give us on your process and priorities in making something happen, and how that will differ from the current process that the Kreisman administration has been pursuing over the past 2 years? A 60-second answer.
So in my business, we have kind of department heads. We have an overarching plan. I'm the managing partner of my businesses. So what we do is we find people that are good at what they do, and we put them in charge of those. That's one of the things we need to do with the Tropicana Field site. Putting it over to one developer for all these different projects and priorities doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Plus, we don't know if there's going to be a ballpark on that site or not. The Rays have changed their tune a little bit. I think they have other sites still in mind too. But number one priority for me would be to restore and enhance the beauty that's already exists with Booker Creek. Booker Creek shouldn't be this gutter that it is in the middle of a parking lot. It should be a beautiful part of that development. I think mixed-use housing, a really dense urban housing that we kind of look like an old town type feel. That's what I'd like to do, is see something there. I think we just need to have lots of trees, green space. I think if there's dense development that kind of creates some of that magic we have in some of our neighborhoods where people can walk and exist in that same way, where we kind of make a little downtown with its own thing, I think that would be a really great thing.
Super, thank you. And then the final section on your philosophy of leadership. There's been a contentious, non-harmonious relationship for many years between the Tallahassee Republican majority and the city administration. How do you plan on working with Tallahassee to benefit St. Petersburg? 30 seconds, please.
I'm going to put St. Pete first. I'm not going to worry about party politics. We have one of the things that I say in my business over and over again, and I say this to every new employee in orientation. They still let me do the orientation now, is you can disagree without being disagreeable. There's a way to have a harmonious way with people that you can say, hey, we don't always agree on this, but what can we agree on? And we've got to change that throughout our country, not just here in Tallahassee or here in St. Pete. We've got to change the way we do business here. That where can we agree on? I think we all can agree that we want a nice place to live. We want clean water, clean air. We want a job for our family. We want a good education for our people. So we got to look at where we can put things together. And I'm a person that built business through partnerships. You know, I didn't get hooked up with anything. You know, I want to work with Tallahassee. I don't care who the governor is. I don't care who's on county commissioner. I want to do what's best for St. Pete. Put St. Pete first.
Thank you. What is the role of citizenry in generating the city's annual budget? 60-second answer.
One of the roles is by participating in events like this. We want to hear what the voters have to say. You have to take an active interest in your city. St. Pete is a unique place with a lot of civic pride. We need to harness this energy. People need to talk to their council people. People need to know who their city council people is. One of the things that's been alarming to me since I've formally announced is how many people don't know who their representatives are. So we need to connect people to those resources. We need to change a few things. I mean, how many people here know about See, Click It, Fix It? Right? That's an app. We all have Facebook on our phones, but we don't have See, Click It, Fix It. We need to do stuff like that so we can connect our people and our populace to the resources to get things done.
Thank you. The city's largest single expenditure annually is on law enforcement. How would you ensure that the St. Pete Police Department is a transparent, accountable body for all citizens, including particularly for the city's minority population? 60 seconds.
So I'm not a defund the police guy. I'm a refund the police guy. I believe public safety is the #1 priority for government, and that's a good place for it to be, is at the top of our list of expense. I would want to take Chief Holloway and his fantastic group of officers. I think we have a very excellent police force. I want to challenge them to be the best police force in the United States. And we do that by taking a real hard look at things like qualified immunity. I know the union doesn't care about that stuff. I've already talked to some people about that. But we need to really challenge them and have this modern policing. I'd like to see a little bit more cameras, a little bit less police contact, but still go after the things that matter to people. If you get your bike stolen, you need to go find and catch that thief. We need to work with the city that if someone gets their bike stolen, there's a bike theft epidemic here. There's an auto theft epidemic here in St. Pete. We got to go after these people and give the police the resource. If we have some more cameras in public areas and we kind of have a nice lockbox for that data so it doesn't get abused or misused of people, I think we need to have a 21st century way of policing where we put St. Pete first in that mantra of being in first place, of we have the best police in the United States. That's what I want.
Thank you. And our final question this evening is Rick Kreisman has served the city for nearly 8 years as our mayor. Can you reflect with us your thoughts on what Mayor Kreisman has done well as the titular head of this city, where he has fallen short, and what you have learned from observing his leadership that will inform how you would serve this community as our mayor? And that's a 90-second answer.
I think there has been a mixed bag with the Kreisman administration. I think they've gotten some things done. You know, maybe people don't all love it, but we got a new pier done. It might be over budget, but I see families and children out there smiling, just like we did when we were kids. I think that's an important thing. Getting a new police station was one of those tired issues that people like the Tiger Bay Club used to hear about all the time, get a new police station. We got a new police station done. So I'd like to honor and appreciate that. Getting the city where it's more inclusive, I think, was a great thing, where we have this feeling where things like Pride are a big success story here in our city. I think that's great when we talk about things. I think they did a great job by giving the opportunity to Tampa to blow it. We let them take a look at the ballpark, and they blew it. All right, just like we thought they would. So that was a bold maneuver. We got to give credit to the Kreisman administration on that. Where I would differ, where I was really disappointed in, was this hyper-partisan nature, that they worried about headlines more than people. They worried about party politics over the people of St. Pete, where they want to change things that affect our lives, like by changing restriction and historic designation, and they want to change all these rules without talking to us. You know, as someone who owned restaurants that was affected by the pandemic, you know, the city wasn't out there leading the way, giving away free meals or helping connect us to resources. It was people like me having to do that. And we had to fight with the city. And it just didn't make a lot of sense. And they didn't even talk to us. They had a reopen St. Pete committee without one representative of the businesses that were closed. There was nobody from the gyms or from the beauty salons or the restaurants on that table. And then nothing ever came of that. No one ever did anything with it. So one of the things we want to do, we want to reconnect to the community, bring the people to the table, bring partnerships together, and end this partisan nature and this ambition for further political office. We just got to put St. Pete first, and that's what I'd like to see different.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pete Boland, thank you very much for joining us.